The song The Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift is not about Joe Alwyn or Maddie Healy or any other man. It's actually about Taylor herself. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ellie, aka All Too Swift, and I upload videos about all things Taylor Swift, and sometimes more. For today's video, I am going to be telling you guys what I think the song, The Tortured Poets Department, is about. This video is going to be pretty long, so I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it.
'Cause I remember it too well.
I do not think this song was written about a man or any other person for that matter. Instead, I think it is a conversation between two versions of Taylor, if you will. So our two versions of Taylor, we have real Taylor, who is our artist. She's our writer. She's the one who feels all the feelings, all the emotions. Then on the other hand, we have brand Taylor. Brand Taylor is the one sharing the music, and she's also the one who kind of polishes it all up nice and pretty for the public to consume. And she's the one that's marketing everything and showing everything. She's the public image of Taylor, if you will. Now, mandatory disclaimer that this is just a theory that I came up with, so like Taylor didn't split her soul in half or anything like that. This is just an interpretation of the song. So for all intents and purposes, this is a metaphor, this is pretend. So essentially the main background of the song is that real Taylor has made a deal with brand Taylor, and now she's kind of stuck in this like abusive and toxic relationship. So real Taylor started when she was just a little kid writing songs in her room, and she was so desperate to get her music out there. She wanted to have an audience, she wanted to be big and famous and have everyone listen to her songs and sing them on the radio. So she was so determined to do this that she was willing to make a deal with brand Taylor in order to do so. She didn't realize at the time that this was something that she would come to depend on for the rest of her life, as releasing music is kind of a form of catharsis for her. So she's not content to merely write things, she feels like she needs to have them out in the world. But real Taylor is the one that writes the things, and she needs brand Taylor to put them out in the world. Because without brand Taylor, there's no public image of Taylor Swift. Real Taylor is just Taylor, the person. She's just this girl. Brand Taylor is Taylor Swift, the company, the persona. Essentially, real Taylor has been hiding behind the facade of brand Taylor for so long that she now feels like it's impossible to separate herself from her. Even if she wanted to stop writing songs and giving her words to brand Taylor, she couldn't, because brand Taylor has convinced her that she's nothing without her and that she needs her to survive. This is very common in abusive relationships, not saying that she's in one, but if this theoretical relationship between the two Taylors is an abusive relationship, this is super common in abusive relationships where the abuser will make the person that's being abused feel like they need them. But even though they want to escape, they can't because they feel like there's nothing for them if they are able to escape. So despite this, even though real Taylor feels like she needs brand Taylor, the truth is brand Taylor is nothing without real Taylor. Real Taylor could stop working with brand Taylor and real Taylor would be completely fine. But brand Taylor would have nothing. She would lose all her money, all her fame, everything. So basically, brand Taylor needs real Taylor to survive. Brand Taylor is absolutely nothing without real Taylor. But she has real Taylor convinced that it's the other way around. She takes real Taylor's thoughts and emotions and she packages them up with a pretty bow. But she doesn't have any thoughts or emotions of her own. She needs real Taylor. But she's afraid of losing that, so she makes real Taylor afraid of losing her so that she knows she'll be safe. Brand Taylor isn't inherently real. She's kind of like a character that's created by real Taylor, so she can kind of separate herself to help her cope with things and keep herself sane. The song is basically about how she realizes that she's created this compartmentalization, if you will, but realizes that she's stuck in it at this point because it's been so long, and if she breaks it down, there's nothing. I think that the person writing the song is not necessarily real Taylor or brand Taylor. It's kind of like other Taylor, I guess, that's looking down and realizing the situation that she's made for herself. So the author of this song, or like the voice of this song, overall the person that wrote this song, is different from both brand Taylor and real Taylor. Basically, this song is about how she recognizes that she's created this compartmentalization and she realizes that she's kind of stuck within it at this point because it's been so long. So like if we take I Can Do It With a Broken Heart as an example, real Taylor was the one feeling the emotions behind the lyrics, but brand Taylor is the one that added the production and everything to make it catchy, and she's the one that performs it on the Eras tour and just puts on this facade that like everything is happy and wonderful. I think it's interesting to note too that the Tortured Poets Department isn't the first time this idea of separate Taylors has been expressed, because in the music video for Antihero we have a lot of different versions of Taylor. In my brain, good Taylor is real Taylor and bad Taylor is brand Taylor. That's kind of looming over her. And then at the end, the large Taylor is her realization of what she's created. So kind of like the perspective that's writing and singing the Tortured Poets department, if that makes sense. We can explore this in a separate video, but I want to dive into the lyrics specifically of the Tortured Poets department. Okay, so the first verse starts from Brand Taylor's point of view. So this is all the things that Brand Taylor is kind of thinking and saying. It says, you left your typewriter at my apartment straight from the Tortured Poets department. Brand Taylor's talking, she's talking to real Taylor. Real Taylor is very dramatic, old-fashioned in her ways, you know, the lakes, folklore, evermore, that whole thing. She's a poet and a tortured one at that, and so she uses her typewriter much like she would use a quill and ink pen just for the vibes. Makes her just feel better about herself and all her sorrows and all the emotions trapped inside. So she types her thoughts out on her little typewriter, and Brand Taylor is basically remarking about how real Taylor leaves remnants of herself everywhere and she's forced to polish up and fix them. Brand Taylor's over here like, just use your notes app, and real Taylor's like, but I want to type on my typewriter. So real Taylor has written a song and she's just left her typewriter there. And so now Brand Taylor has to go and fix it up and make it all pretty and polished and ready to put on the album. Brand Taylor works on the production of the songs and real Taylor writes the lyrics. And so real Taylor tends to be a bit messy and careless with her emotions, whereas Brand Taylor has to prep everything for public consumption. I can imagine Brand Taylor shaking her head like, of course she forgot to fix this. So she's basically just complaining that she has to clean up the messes that are created by real Taylor. And she refers to the Tortured Poets department. I think this is kind of just a way to demean and poke fun at real Taylor's emotions. Brand Taylor is kind of just saying like, you're such a tortured poet in a demeaning way, talking down to real Taylor, and she's just showing like, oh my gosh, you're so dramatic, get over yourself. Next lines are, I think some things I never say, like who uses typewriters anyway. Again, she's old-fashioned and Brand Taylor just thinks it's weird, like why can't she just write in her notes app? But real Taylor is melodramatic and needs her typewriter. Because Brand Taylor knows that she is nothing without real Taylor, even though she gaslights real Taylor into thinking the opposite, she's hesitant to actually voice her opinions because she doesn't want to risk losing her connection with real Taylor. So instead she decides to kind of just tiptoe around her criticisms. It's not like it's a real problem, it's kind of just a minor annoyance. So to Brand Taylor, it's not worth arguing about it because she doesn't want to risk losing the person that's making her all this money. You're in self-sabotage mode, throwing spikes down on the road. This, I think, is a really cool metaphor because Taylor's spoken before, especially when it came to the Midnight's release and that album specifically, about how a lot of times she's kept awake at night by her thoughts and she just has to write to get them down. And so she's also talked about mental illness in the past, and self-sabotage mode is very mental illness coded. As she's throwing spikes down on the road, this is a metaphor for the fact that she's furiously writing these lyrics about people that may come back to haunt her later. She's kind of just like throwing all these things out there and sabotaging herself almost. She's showing her vulnerability and putting her emotions out there, even though she's probably going to run over these spikes later and end up hurting herself because of it. Then Brand Taylor says, but I've seen this episode and still love the show. Yes, there she goes again, being self-destructive. However, Brand Taylor knows that the more mentally unstable real Taylor is, the better the album will be. She's seen her go crazy before and literally watched her win the Grammy for Album of the Year because of it. And so she's seen these depressive episodes, but she knows that they result in good songs, and she's not going to do anything about it because she knows that she'll get over it and she'll end up writing a good song. The next couple lines are basically just Brand Taylor gaslighting real Taylor. When she says who else decodes you, she's telling real Taylor that she's nothing without her. Brand Taylor is insinuating that she is the only one who can make sense of real Taylor's emotions and decode what she's written into the next big single. Real Taylor just has all these feelings, gets them out, and Brand Taylor is the one that fixes them and makes them pretty. Next line, and who's gonna hold you like me, and who's gonna know you if not me? She's saying, yes, you might be mentally ill, but look how rich you are. Brand Taylor is telling real Taylor that she's the only one who can bring her comfort. Her whole existence depends on making real Taylor feel this way. Okay, now this is the part where I did a lot of extensive research on, so bear with me. But the next line, I laughed in your face and said, you're not Dylan Thomas, I'm not Patti Smith. This is gonna take a second to unpack. So, I think Dylan Thomas is real Taylor and Patti Smith is Brand Taylor. Now, Dylan Thomas is a Welsh poet who wrote romantic, emotional poems, and most of his poems were fueled by emotions rather than thoughts. So he would write to get his emotions out there. He wouldn't really make them fully formed, cohesive stories. Instead, it was more so just like these emotions that he just needed to get off his chest. We have Patti Smith, and she was also a poet, and her poetry consisted a lot of personal stories and memoirs, which is an interesting connection because most Taylor Swift songs are written about her experiences, and Brand Taylor is saying like, hey look, I'm Patti Smith, I write these memoirs, I take your emotions and I fit them into the narrative of your life that we've painted for society. Patti Smith also did a lot of other things other than poetry because she was a songwriter, photographer, a bunch of other things. And so in other words, Real Taylor is the emotional poet while Brand Taylor is the more polished version that puts everything together and accomplishes more stuff. Real Taylor spills her emotions out onto the page and Brand Taylor makes them pretty and fit into the narrative Taylor character that she's created for everyone to see. Now, if we backtrack a step, she's saying that they are not these things, which shows that she sees Real Taylor as dramatic. Real Taylor wants to be a tortured poet who just writes her feelings down all day. But Brand Taylor's telling her, girl, you're not a poet, get over yourself. She's like, you're not Dylan Thomas, like, chill out. And to reflect upon herself, she's saying, I'm not Patti Smith. I'm not this songwriter, photographer, everything. Like, I don't do all this thing. Like, I'm just me. Now we come to the Chelsea Hotel, which the history behind the Chelsea Hotel is really interesting. I definitely recommend reading up on it if you have the opportunity to. But the next line, she says, this ain't the Chelsea Hotel, we're modern idiots. So, unpacking that one a little bit, we have the Chelsea Hotel, which is a famous hotel in Manhattan in New York City, and it was built in 1884, and it's known for famously housing poets, writers, and other creatives over time. One thing that I found interesting is, I'm not sure if it's still up, but at one point in the dining room, there were portraits from the story of Don Quixote? I don't know how you say that. But anyway, it's a story and it's often considered to be one of the first like modern novels, but basically it's about this man who is like in the lowest nobility level, but he read all these stories and things and he kind of like got delulu, if you will, to the point where he was like, hey, I could do all this stuff. So he disguises himself as a knight and tries to just be a knight and be chivalrous and like save people and all that. It's kind of similar to Candide by Voltaire, which if you haven't read that, you should, because I love Voltaire. But basically, this man is so disillusioned, he thinks that like he can be this knight, he can be brave and chivalrous and do all these things, and gradually he starts to face reality, which I think is interesting because the Chelsea Hotel housed a lot of creatives, and these were the types of people who lived in their heads the whole time, and they weren't necessarily ready to face reality all the time, or at least they tried to escape reality. So I feel like that's very reflective of the clientele of the Chelsea Hotel, and it's also very reflective of Taylor herself in the fact that she kind of just writes as a form of escape. Another interesting tidbit too is that Dylan Thomas actually lived at the hotel for a time, and he ended up dying there too. He got sick and was in a coma for a few days before he died, and the suite that he stayed in was preserved, but it has since been demolished. There's kind of like basically been a bunch of custody battles about the hotel over the years because it was bankrupt at one point, and then it's a whole thing. I definitely recommend reading up on it. Patti Smith also did stay at the Chelsea Hotel, and literally a ton of other writers and poets and just all around creatives. So basically, the Chelsea Hotel is just this hotel that's famous for having creative people stay there. Next up, we come to the phrasing modern idiots, and so I was kind of confused by this at first, but then I did some more research into the root of the word idiot, and it actually comes from ancient Greece, where it was used to refer to a private person who didn't participate in the political affairs of the city-state. So this Brand Taylor could be calling the two of them stupid, but the modern part calls attention to the fact that there's a definition of idiot that's not like the modern definition, because like by modern standards, if you call someone an idiot, you're just calling them stupid. But if you say modern idiot, it makes it seem like you're referring to a different definition of idiot. So I think she's referring to the unmodern meaning, and basically saying both Taylors are private people and no one knows the truth of what goes on in Taylor's head. So if we combine the two, when the hotel was first established, it was a sanctuary of sorts for all kinds of creatives, and they were often very private and kept to themselves. A lot of them would kind of just stay in their rooms and write all day. And it was also inexpensive and a good place for writers down on their luck to stay. However, as time has gone on, it's attracted more people because of its fame and the history behind it. Basically, Real Taylor has this idealized, romanticized view of life where she wants to just go to the Chelsea Hotel and get away and just stay there and write her little songs and be all by herself. But Brand Taylor is kind of chastising her and scolding her and telling her that life isn't a sanctuary where she can hide away and write all the time. She's saying this view is outdated, like this is no longer a thing, because in modern times, the Chelsea Hotel, like, yes, creative people still stay there, but it's kind of become more like a touristy thing more than anything because of the history behind it and how like interesting it is. And so it's super expensive to stay there, and a lot of people stay there just as kind of like a tourist thing. or just as like a symbol of status, I guess. And then we have like the end of the chorus. We kind of already talked about that. But then we come to the next verse where it says, you smoked and ate 7 bars of chocolate. Obviously not saying that Taylor does this. We don't know if she does or if she doesn't. But artists do often get high in order to bring out their creativity. This is a thing that's proven that when you're high, you're oftentimes more creative and you're able to think of different ideas that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And it also is a form of escape because you don't feel your emotions as intensely. You kind of like are above it all. So whether or not this is explicitly referring to real Taylor smoking and getting high, or if it's just being kind of a metaphor, she's basically saying that real Taylor gets into a slightly delusional state and then she writes her songs. The next line, we declared Charlie Puth should be a bigger artist. This is showing how real Taylor has people that she wants to work with purely because of the people that they are and because she admires their work. Brand Taylor sees it as a business thing. So real Taylor wants to work with Charlie Puth because she likes his work, she thinks he's a cool dude. Brand Taylor sees it as good press for the both of them. She's saying, hey, he should be a bigger artist, that works. And she's kind of speaking on behalf of the real Taylor in that sense. The next line I think is very representative of literally the whole plot of the song, where she says, I scratch your head, you fall asleep like a tattooed golden retriever. Real Taylor does her work and she's rewarded for it. Brand Taylor pats her on the head, she tells her good job, and she's calling her a tattooed golden retriever, which I feel like a lot of people don't like this lyric, but I think it's really interesting. I think the tattooed part is referring to the fact that she's kind of scarred by her past. She's a golden retriever in the sense that she's loyal and will do what's asked for her, because golden retrievers are known for being retrievers. She's scarred and she's been hurt before, but she's very loyal to Brand Taylor, and so even though she knows that she might get hurt, she's still gonna remain loyal to her. The next line, but you awaken with dread pounding nails in your head, that's kind of what we already talked about, basically midnights, you know, she wakes up in the middle of the night and she has to get this writing out. I've read this one where you come undone. Again, Brand Taylor knows that when real Taylor is at her worst mentally, she does her best work. And she says, I chose this cyclone with you. They're tied together and Brand Taylor is willing to weather the storm that she knows real Taylor's gonna bring because she knows it's gonna reward her in the end. Even though she has to deal with crazy mentally unstable real Taylor right now, Brand Taylor's like, okay, it's worth it because I'm gonna get all this money from this new album that she's gonna write. Then we have the chorus again, which we already talked about, but when we come to the bridge, this one is really interesting. Brand Taylor says, sometimes I wonder if you're gonna screw this up with me. So Brand Taylor thinks about real Taylor leaving her, but she knows she never will. She's like, I think about it sometimes, but I know it won't happen. And she says, but you told Lucy you'd kill yourself if I ever leave. It's unclear who she's referring to by Lucy. It could be Lucy as in member of Boy Genius, or it could just be like a different person or just a name that she filled in just because. But anyway, it's referring to someone who Brand Taylor is not explicitly friends with because we don't know exactly who this person is. Brand Taylor and the image that Brand Taylor has curated for herself does not include this person. But it's possible that they still talk from time to time privately because they run in similar circles, or maybe they're friends outside of music or whatever. Real Taylor might confide in her then and say, hey, you know, like I feel trapped, but if she ever left, I don't know what I would do. And then she says, and I had said that to Jack about you, so I felt seen. Jack is very explicitly leading to Jack Antonoff, a producer, and producers produce music. They polish it up and make it ready to release. Brand Taylor is nothing without the one writing everything, so she tells Jack that if the person writing all the stuff was gone, there would be nothing for Brand Taylor to work with. So basically, if it weren't for real Taylor, Brand Taylor would not exist. She would not be able to release all her music and do all the things she does. The next line I see is coming from both real Taylor and Brand Taylor, where they say everyone we know understands what it's meant to be because we're crazy. Just this, everyone who knows them from this dynamic that they have knows what's going on and they just see that it works. So they're not going to try and change anything. They're like, you're kind of insane, but it works, so we can't complain. The perspective switches and we get to real Taylor, where she says, so tell me who else is gonna know me. This perspective switch is really important because it's her reflecting and saying like, okay, if I don't have Brand Taylor, like what am I going to do with myself? Then I really like the next couple lines. At dinner, you take my ring off my middle finger and put it on the one people put wedding rings on. And that's the closest I've come to my heart exploding. You have to break it down a little bit, but basically, if you wear a ring on your middle finger, that signals that you're not committed to anyone because a ring finger would show that you're married or engaged or whatever. So middle finger shows that you're not committed to anyone. You're your own person. And as a result, it's kind of representative of the fact that you're an individual and you're analyzing yourself. However, real Taylor has this ring on her middle finger, and at dinner, Brand Taylor slides over and she puts it on her ring finger instead. She's showing that real Taylor is chained to her and she's stuck, she's committed to her. And Taylor is showing everyone that she has a claim over real Taylor and that real Taylor is not her own person. Instead, she's chained and stuck with brand Taylor. And then the next line, and that's the closest I've come to my heart exploding, I think this one can be taken two ways. The first way, this makes her heart explode with admiration and that she's glad that someone cares about her and wants to be committed to her like that. However, it can also be taken as anger, and so real Taylor is trying to protest and get away from brand Taylor, but brand Taylor's hold is too strong. Real Taylor's heart explodes with the effort of trying to escape and the eventual heartbroken realization that she can't. She's stuck. Then we have our little chorus again, but this time she changes from modern idiots to two idiots. So this, I think, is her showing that both Taylors, they're not even tortured poets. They're just stupid for thinking that this relationship would ever work. So she's kind of reflecting like, okay, like it's not even about music at this point. Like we're just insane. Then we have the chorus again, which basically just means the same thing, although this time she does add the lyric, gonna troll you. And I think this is just basically brand Taylor showing how she tortures real Taylor with stories from outside her captivity. So real Taylor is Rapunzel. She's trapped inside this tower, writing her little songs, getting her emotions out. And brand Taylor gets to go out into the world and do all this cool stuff, meet all these cool people. And so she's kind of torturing her with all this stuff like, oh, guess who I got to meet? Guess how your album did? All that stuff. And she's kind of trolling her in that way. And then the very end of the song is just a repetition of the beginning. And so it means the same thing again. But I think it's also just showing how this cycle continues and how real Taylor and brand Taylor are intertwined and they're stuck and they can't escape each other. But yeah, that was a lot. So hopefully you guys were able to follow along. I love doing these lyric analyses. Literally, like, analyzing poems and lyrics is my favorite thing ever. If you have any other songs that you want me to analyze, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know what you think of this analysis, because the amazing thing about songs and lyrics is that they can be analyzed in so many different ways. There's literally no one right way to analyze something. So I think it's really awesome and cool that we're able to interpret things how we want and kind of color them based on our own experiences too, and our own personal biases and like whatever. But I would be curious to hear what Taylor thinks of this, if this was her intention, if this was something she didn't think of. I don't know. But definitely give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you aren't already, because you made it to the end of this video and this was a really freaking long video. So you obviously enjoyed it. So might as well subscribe so that you can stick around for more. And yeah, I love you guys so much. I hope you have an amazing day because you're beautiful and smart and amazing and talented and a tortured poet, but I love you because of it. And yeah. Bye, guys.